Hi, my name is Tony Reed. I'm a member of the Board of Directors, and what I wanted to do today is give you a brief overview of our latest board meeting that was held last week. We had two outside residents in attendance, but hopefully this recap will give you an opportunity to understand a little bit about what we discussed at the meeting. First off, talking about the agenda, we wanted to cover a couple of things in the board meeting. We, as you perhaps had seen, we sent out a note late. We were going to be discussing this project called Dreamcatcher. We postponed that discussion because we weren't quite ready to have that discussion, so you will see that in a future board meeting. In addition to that, we covered our usual things, which are community updates or community reports, which includes financial information, which I'll go over here in a minute. It also includes new business that we're going to talk about a little bit again later, but new business that will give you some insight in terms of some of the other topics that we covered as a board. So first off, with the community reports, again, we did talk about the financial statements, which we do at every board meeting. Obviously, financial reports are very important to the ongoing operation of the association, so we cover those in quite detail in every meeting. We have a treasurer, Mike Peckham, that goes through those in great detail. But let me give you a quick snapshot of what we discussed. The first is our key performance indicators. So these are the key metrics that we look at on a very regular basis to make sure that the association is in decent financial position and that we're monitoring and managing the cash that we're entrusted to do so. So first, operating cash position, we have about $1.29 million in operating cash. This cash is used for obviously the operation of the association, things like landscaping and water bills and all the normal expenses that we have as an association. So we're in good shape. Months of operating cash was at a little bit over 4 months or so, which we were in great shape from an operating cash perspective. One of the other key performance indicators we have is the current ratio, which is basically our ability to meet our current obligations, our current liabilities. We try to keep that around 1.2 or so, and so this month we're at 1.3, which is, again, a good indicator of where we are from a financial standpoint. Next, operating surplus. We actually had an operating surplus for the first 3 months of this year, January through March, of a little more than $119,000. We actually projected a budget deficit of about $4,000. So we were quite pleased with the fact that we had a surplus in the January through March timeframe. Keep in mind, we had COVID-related circumstances, and so that impacted our cash flow in a fairly significant way, and that's why we ended up with a surplus. In terms of our operating surplus as well, that's about 3.5% of our budget or so. So again, for January through March, we did really well. In terms of collections, collection of the assessment fees and the like, that's our primary revenue driver, as you might know. We're really in the good range. We had 98% of our dollars collected from assessment, so 98% success rate, if you will, for our assessment. So again, that was in the good range. When you look at our accounts receivable, aging, we do an aging report every month. I'm not going to go through that in great detail, but we're in good shape from an aging perspective. We don't have a lot of accounts receivable that are really old. And so we're in a really good position from an aging perspective. So that's a brief recap of the January through March timeframe. In terms of our April financial statements, again, we looked at our key performance indicators. Operating cash was $1.6 million in April, which obviously increased over the first 3 months of the year. So we're in really good shape there. Our surplus for the month of April was $131,000 over budget. Again, we had projected a negative budget impact for April, but we ended up with a positive of $131,000. So really good shape there. And then our collections were down a little bit from what they were in January through March. They're down to 94%, but still in the good range in terms of our collectability of assessments that were due. Let's see. In addition, we talked about a couple of other things from a financial perspective. One being the reserve account. Our reserve account was really held, or is an account that we hold monies to replace large capital items within the association, things like roads and other community assets. And our reserve account is well funded. We have about $12.5 million of reserve funding set aside for replacement over the next number of years. And so we have a whole schedule that we built out that talks about each and every year and what we're going to be replacing. And we have a balance of about $12.5 million to be able to meet our obligations there. And then in additionally, we have a capital improvement fund, so things that come up that we haven't that we haven't set aside funds for already. We do have a capital improvement fund, so when we want to have a big capital outlay on new equipment or a new park or a new whatever, we have the funds to be able to do that. And so we have money set aside for that. The balance for this month is $247,000. So we continue to accrue monies to put into our funds so that we have funds available when needed. So that's a bit of a recap of the financial aspects of the meeting. We then went into our management reports, and primarily our management company, CCMC, provides a lot of our management update because obviously they are responsible for managing the day-to-day operations of the association. So we talked a little bit first as a group around the COVID-19 and the impact to the association. We were well pleased to see that we did not have much of an impact, as I pointed out, from a financial perspective, as a result of COVID-19. We had seven residents ask for some type of forbearance of their assessment fees. Now, this is not a forgiveness of those, it's a forbearance, so a little bit of delay in those assessments. And basically what we're doing with those are evaluating those on a case-by-case basis and being able to help homeowners out if and when needed, when we have reviewed their application and think it's appropriate to do so. So we have 7 of those completed. We thought that it was going to be probably more than that, so we were pleasantly surprised that it wasn't. In terms of committee involvement over the last really month or so, we continue to work in our landscape committee to work on potentially selecting a new vendor as a landscape management company, where we sent out an RFP. We've got 10 or so responses. We are in the process of whittling down the number of respondents down to a manageable few so we can make a selection in the next month or so. So we're hopeful to get that work wrapped up, and then the board will be discussing any recommendations that the landscape committee has here in the next 30 days or so. And then in addition, the other committees that meet regularly are architectural committees, both the custom homes and the other home committees. They meet to review applications, to review homeowners' requests for new paint colors or changes or additions to their homes, things like that. They meet on a regular basis every week, and so we continue to have those meetings as well. So that was it from a community or from a committee meeting level. In addition, we talked a little bit about a couple of the team members that will be transitioning from CCMC. So as many of you know, Vance, who is our communications director, he is moving on, and we've actually been able to find a replacement. Her name is Mackenzie, and she will be joining us. As a matter of fact, she's in training now to assume those roles once Vance rolls off. So I personally want to give a big thanks to Vance for his excellent work over the last year. Really, he's done just a super job in terms of increasing our visibility, increasing our presence in the community, and really acting as that key executive for our communication strategy. So a big shout out to Vance, and we certainly wish him well in his next endeavor. And we're certainly glad that Mackenzie is stepping in, and we look forward to working with her on an ongoing basis. We also talked a little bit about communications. Again, as you know, Vance was handling the communications aspect, and I won't bore you with all the details, but our visibility has been up over the last number of months in terms of views on Facebook and other social media. And our touch points between our association and our residents, I think, has greatly improved over the last number of months. So we continue to look forward to increased visibility and being able to get information in our residents' hands so that they can stay informed and stay up to date with what's going on. From a lifestyle perspective, over the last month or so, a couple of things happened. There was a senior week, which the association kind of recognized our graduating individuals. So that would be graduation from either elementary, high school, college. We basically recognize those individuals for the job well done in terms of graduation. So that happened. We had a food drive that resulted in looks like 1,900 or so pounds of food being collected, and over $600 in cash being collected, all in a 2-hour span of time. So that was really tremendous. And then lastly, there was many of you might have participated in. There was a step challenge, which was basically a number of steps in a walk to Disneyland, if you will. So that completed, and we crowned a champion of that. So that was kind of a fun event that residents were able to participate in and take their mind off of COVID-19. So we next, in the board meeting, we next turned to kind of new business and talking about some of the new things that we wanted to bring up and discuss. The first couple of items really had to do with the rollout or the reopening of the association. Obviously, due to COVID, we've been closed. The last couple of months, the trailhead has been closed. Many of our amenities have been closed, and we're slowly getting back to reopening those. So we discussed in detail what that plan would be. And we heard an update in terms of how things have been going from an association perspective in terms of reopening some of those amenities. So I know most of you have heard a lot about that. So stay tuned for the last little bit in terms of things that will open soon. The Spawn Fitness is probably one of our premier amenities here, and that's in the midst of being rolled back out, and participants being able to participate in gym activities and fitness activities and things like that. One thing that we did do immediately was and this was based on input that we got by one of the residents that actually attended the meeting, was that we immediately extended the hours for the pools, both here at the Trailhead and Boulder Mountain. We basically will be open now from 5 in the morning till 10 p.m. at night, and the pool will actually be monitored from 10 in the morning to 7 at night. And so that monitor will ensure that social distancing is being adhered to, and that all the other safety precautions that we have around those pools are being looked at and monitored. But that was an immediate reaction that we took based on some feedback that we got from residents, and we know the hot weather's here, and we know that those pools are important, so we immediately opened those and are able to extend the hours back to what they used to do pre-COVID. Just a couple of other items that we covered under new business. We talked really about our priorities. As many of you know, you might have heard on a previous webcam or webcast that we have a number of priorities that we wanted to try to get accomplished in 2020 here, and we kind of reviewed that list of things that we wanted to get accomplished, and we kind of redoubled our efforts in terms of making sure that we had plans in place to be able to accomplish those things that we want to accomplish. So we kind of rediscussed those and made sure that we were all in agreement around the priorities, and we started to put in motion some of the plans that we have. These are things like strategic planning. There are things like the enclave fire mitigation, so making sure that we have fire mitigation crews that are monitoring and managing the potential community areas that could be infected if and when a fire would blow through there. There are also things like the landscape committee, as I mentioned, we're selecting a new landscape vendor. Or it could be the same landscape vendor, but we're going to extend another contract for our landscape management. So those are some of the priorities that we're really working on, and I think as a board we kind of redoubled our efforts to make sure that we have plans in place to be able to accomplish those things this year. And then just a couple of other things that we covered for towards the end of the meeting. We did have a vacancy on our board of directors. As many of you know, we put out a note that we had a vacancy due to the resignation of Joe Trotter. And we had one applicant, and we discussed that applicant's qualifications, and we are in the process of affirming that application and extending an invite to this new board member. So we'll announce that when that becomes final. But we do have a candidate that stepped up and is willing to serve on our board for the remainder of Joe Trotter's term. In addition, we talked about a couple of items around our committees, our finance committee, our architectural review committee, and the landscape committee, and we got an update in terms of where they are on some of their key initiatives, and suffice it to say you'll hear more about all of those in the next board meeting or two as we get some of those plans finalized. And that really wrapped up what we did at the board. It was a great discussion. We were here in person for the first time in several months. At least most of us were here. Or we did have one member that was on the phone. We did social distance, so we spread out. But it was a good discussion, and I think some good plans were laid for future accomplishments for the board through the remainder of the year. So. With that, I will sign off. If you certainly have any questions that either I can answer or any other member of the board or CCMC, please reach out. But if not, we'll see you next time. Thank you.